The Russian government has announced the removal of the country's defense minister by President Vladimir Putin. The Kremlin says the decision arose from the desire to keep the country's defense ministry innovative. 68-year-old Sergei Shoigu had been defense minister since 2001. He is to be appointed secretary of Russia's Security Council. We have a report.
Russia's outgoing Minister of Defense, Sergei Shoigu, has close links with President Vladimir Putin, who often took him on fishing trips in Siberia. He was given the defense portfolio without military background, which got some top military officers angry. He is a civil engineer who rose to prominence as the head of the Emergencies and Disaster Relief Ministry in the 90s. In 2023, Mr. Shoigu had disagreements with the Wagner mercenary chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, over Russia's conduct of the war with Ukraine. The mercenary chief died in a plane crash while flying from St. Petersburg to Moscow in August 2023. The Russian government denied having anything to do with his death. Mr. Shoigu's suggested replacement is Andrei Belousov. He is an economist with little military experience. Some analysts say the interest in him could be as a result of President Putin's desire to see the Russian economy rise beyond the effects of the war with Ukraine and multiple sanctions still plaguing the Russian economy. Mr. Belousov is seen as a hardline defender of the Russian nation, who believes that Russia is encircled by enemies.
Well, let's turn to Georgia, where in a last-ditch effort to prevent the passing of a controversial law, overnight protests in Georgia has continued into the morning. Security forces have pulled out from the main square after a standoff with protesters outside Parliament in Tbilisi. The protesters oppose a controversial foreign influence bill described by critics as the Russian law. The final voting on the bill is scheduled for Tuesday. Earlier in the day, the governing Georgian Dream Party lawmakers rushed the bill through a committee vote, approving it in just 67 seconds. The bill, now due to go for its third and final reading, targets civil society organizations and independent media that receive foreign funding. Protesters are concerned that the law would be used by the government to clamp down on dissent and would harm Georgia's hopes of joining the European Union. And for more on the situation in Russia and the protest in Georgia, global affairs analyst Collins Owenke joins me from the Belgian capital, Brussels. Good to have you join us.
Thank you, Precious, for having me.
So let's begin with this latest development in Russia. You will recall that in April, one of President Putin's deputies, Timur Ivanov, was arrested on corruption charges, and that was in a very rare move against such a senior official. What do you make of this shakeup in the power structure in Russia, and why now?
Ordinarily, one will not read any extra meaning to, the sort of actions that Vladimir Putin has taken. Neither could one have any qualms with Parliament trying to do the job for which, they were elected. You see, but the reason the situation in both Russia and Georgia are special is the fact that although the foundations of these countries were built on democratic principles, we have seen them over the years gradually drifting away from democracy and more into autocracy. And so anything that happens, like what we're witnessing today, is viewed with extra scrutiny. And so that is actually the origin of the massive protest that we have seen in Georgia, trying to stop the parliament from, voting after the third and final reading of the bill aimed to, according to them, curb press freedom.
And still staying on that Russia shakeup, I also wanted to ask you about this. Many have talked about how this sort of links to the comments made against, or the rivalry between then head of Wagner Group, who has now died in a plane crash or helicopter crash, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who had that public rivalry with the Minister of Defense or the Ministry of Defense, and we've now seen that shake up, or that, after that fallout. But also, people are also talking about, look, in Ukraine, President Zelensky has also recently removed his Minister of Defense. He also appointed an economist, Rostem Umerov. Both countries seem to be re-strategizing for the next phase of this war and the economics of it, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, there is what they call the economics of war. Now, in wartime, of course, you need both the, military professionals as well, and that is when you are at the core of the war itself, because they understand the military strategies and all of that, but it is also prudent and politically savvy to begin to already think beyond the war. Now, at the end of the war, and indeed while we're trying to manage the war, how do you go about the economics of it in terms of, managing your resources such that you are able to sustain the war by way of acquisition of ammunition, but also economic policies that actually help to show up your economy. So it is not surprise at all that, these two unrelated, shakeups from rivalries are actually pointing towards the same direction. You can describe it indeed as being politically savvy.
And let's now get to what you were talking about earlier, what's going on in Georgia. I want to get your thought on that foreign influence bill, and then the protest that has followed, and the timing of it all, which is very interesting because it's close to the general elections in October.
Well, like I mentioned in my intro, I mean, such a law, you have it everywhere. Both in the US, many countries of the EU actually try to, pass laws to ensure that there are no, foreign interferences in their domestic politics, okay? So it is normal. And in politics, and even in international relations, you need to think in the best interest of your country. But the reason people are picking holes on this particular one, just indeed as they did in Israel recently, that, decided to, close Al Jazeera in Israel, is because, they could read through it and see the intentional efforts there to actually, clamp down on press freedom. And both the two countries at the heart of the conversation now, which is Georgia and, Russia, are seen to be enemies of the West. One, both of them are coming closer and closer together, while polls show that their citizens, especially in Georgia, are actually leaning a lot more to the European Union. And so, to be able to forestall some of the fundings that they believe are coming from the European Union to destabilize, their, politics, they decided it is the right thing to pass this law.
We'll also see how all of this would tie into Georgia's ambition to join the European Union. Many would say, look, that's also at stake here. But we're following developments in both countries, that's Georgia and Russia. Thank you so much for your time. Global Affairs Analyst Connie Soweke.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arch are meant to be.
Voted as the best TV station of the year. TVC News breaks into the core of every event as they happen. Following all nationwide big and impactful stories. Without the news from every perspective, covering every human angle. I am Veronica, bringing you the news you would want to watch.
Gaza's health ministry has warned that the health system could collapse in a few hours. This is as Israeli forces order medical staff at Rafah's Kuwaiti hospital to evacuate. In northern Gaza, fierce clashes have been reported in Jabalia as Israel sends troops and tanks back into the area. We have a report.
It was an overnight battle in Jabalia in northern Gaza, which culminated an intense ground assault. It is coming at a time that Israeli military cemeteries are witnessing a wave of protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his ministers on a day commemorating the memorial of soldiers killed in wars. Protesters blamed ministers who were in attendance for shedding the blood of Israelis. Many left when Prime Minister Netanyahu started his speech. At the Kiryat Shol cemetery near Tel Aviv, Israelis also staged a peaceful protest during Defense Minister Yoav Gallant's speech demanding his resignation. Anti-government protesters have been urging the Netanyahu government to strike a deal with Hamas to free captives held in Gaza. Meanwhile, the Israeli military says 3 of its soldiers were lightly injured and 1 moderately injured by 2 anti-tank missiles that crossed into Israeli territory from southern Lebanon. Since October 8th, there has been crossfire between Israeli military and Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Lebanese armed group launches attacks on Israel in solidarity with the Palestinian people in Gaza.
The Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, Lord Cameron, said a UK ban on selling arms to Israel would only strengthen Hamas, explaining that the UK supplies only 1% of Israel's weapon. Lord Cameron says while he would not support a major ground offensive in the city of Rafah, the UK would not copy plans by the US to stop some arms sales to Israel. He warned Israel must do more to protect civilians and allow the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. And to other stories, the 4th phase of voting in India's election is underway for 96 seats across 9 states, including the Union Territory of the Indian-administered Kashmir. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party has not fielded candidates in any of the 3 seats in the Muslim-majority region of Kashmir. Experts and rivals argue the Hindu majoritarian party wants to avoid an outcome that may challenge its claims of bringing development and peace to the Himalayan region, which has seen decades of armed rebellion against Indian rule. The first 3 phases of mammoth voting were held on April the 19th, April the 26th, and 7th of May. The results will be announced on the 4th of June. Now, the Spanish Socialist Party of Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has won Catalonia's regional election as pro-independence parties lose ground. The Catalan Socialist Party, under former Spanish Health Minister Salvador Illa, made substantial gains to emerge as the clear winner with 99% of votes counted. It has secured 42 leadership seats. The Catalan Government Statistics Institute says support for independence has dropped to 42% from 49 in 2017. In the campaign ahead of this election, the issue of Catalonia's relationship with the rest of Spain was pushed into the background by other challenges such as the region's drought and housing crisis. But overall, nationalist parties lost support, meaning they no longer control the regional parliament, which has turned out as a blow for the independence movement. Analysts of the ongoing Manhattan criminal trial of the former U.S. President Donald Trump say the prosecution's star witness could turn out to be the biggest liability. Michael Cohen, Mr. Trump's former personal attorney, is one now under judicial searchlight to testify against the man who was once his boss. Mr. Michael Cohen allegedly made the hush money payment at the center of the case. It is a sum which the prosecution alleges was fraudulently reimbursed by Mr. Trump. But outside the courtroom, Mr. Cohen has mocked Mr. Trump on X, calling him Sleepy Donald, and also putting up mock pictures of the former U.S. president in prison uniform, joking about him being incarcerated on TikTok. But Mr. Cohen's actions was seen as going too far for Justice Juan Merchan, who on Friday warned prosecutors to tell Mr. Cohen to stop commenting on the case. And still on judicial matters, in the United Kingdom, 3 men have been charged under the National Security Act with assisting the Hong Kong Intelligence Service and foreign interference. The 3 are to appear in custody at Westminster Magistrates Court. The Metropolitan Police say the Hong Kong investigation was not related to a separate case involving Russia. As part of the investigation, a total of 11 people were detained under Section 27 of the National Security Act. The commander of the Metropolitan Police Counter-Terrorism Command, Dominic Murphy, says the people should not speculate or comment further in relation to the case. And still staying with criminal justice matters, a teenager who stabbed a British mother to death after breaking into her home in Australia has been jailed for 14 years. Emma Lovell, a 41, was killed when confronting 2 intruders in Brisbane on Boxing Day in 2022. She had emigrated from Suffolk in 2011, and her daughters and her husband, Lee, who were also injured in the attack. The offender was 17 at the time, pleaded guilty at the murder earlier this year. He also admitted to 3 other burglary and assault charges. And out to Indonesia, where heavy rain over the weekend triggered flash flooding and sent torrents of volcanic eruptions, killing at least 37 people. Government officials say hours of rain on Saturday night carried volcanic rock and ash down Mount Merapi and the island of Sumatra, causing chaotic situations in homes in nearby towns. In Indonesia, mudslides known as lahars translates to cold lava. And Mount Everest saw 2 record-breaking climbs on Sunday, with a Nepali Kami Rita and Sherpa making the most ever summits, and a British climber setting the record for a foreigner. Kami Sherpa, 54, scaled the world's tallest mountain for a 29th time, while British man Kenton Cole marked his 18th peak. Mr. Sherpa, already the world record holder, beat his own landmark in setting the new standard. He has been guide for over 2 decades. He's first climbed the summit in 1994 and has made the peak almost every year since. And back here in Nigeria, Sunday concluded the visit of the Duke and Duchess of Success's visit to Nigeria. Their last stop was Lagos, where they met Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu at the State House Marina. Senior correspondent Adedoja Salama Deni reports.
The visit to Lagos started from the airport, where the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Meghan, were treated to cultural display. Later, they moved to the island, accompanied by the Chief of Defence Staff, General Christopher Gwabin Musa. They were received by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and other top government officials at the Lagos House Marina. They held their discussions behind a closed door. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are in Nigeria to promote their Invictus Games to encourage wounded soldiers and their families, as well as promote mental health. 15 minutes after, Governor Sanwo-Olu briefed the media about the significance of the royal visit to Lagos.
We're indeed happy for what they are doing, especially for our military men, conversations around mental illness, and how they can galvanize their various NGOs at ensuring that people that require those supports, both in military and in private, can seek those support. And the conversation around mental health issues, is also something that we all live around. And, the denial, the stigmatization is out of it's out of one of the things that we've talked about. And more importantly, the Invictus game that Prince Harry is known for. At what point can we have it in Nigeria?
Lagos, being the commercial nerve center of Nigeria, is important for the royals to visit. Queen Elizabeth II visited Nigeria and Lagos in particular in 1956 and 2003. King Charles III visited in 1990, 1999, 2006 and 2018 when he was the Prince of Wales. Now, Prince Harry and Meghan are the latest members of the British royal family to visit Nigeria and Lagos State in particular. The Invictus Games was founded by Prince Harry in 2014 as an international multi-sport event for wounded, injured and sick servicemen and women, both serving and veterans, on what to achieve post-injury. The prince's visit might be brief, but the memory on soldiers wounded in battle will remain indelible on their minds for years to come. Adedoja, Salam Adeniyi, TVC News, Lagos.
That's the What Now. For more updates on the stories we're monitoring, you can visit our website, www.tvcnews.tv. You can also follow us on our social media pages. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and on X at TVC News NG. On YouTube, we're live at TVC News Nigeria. Thanks for watching.